Order of operations. Okay, so we all know our order of operations, right guys? Only thing is now we're going to start adding in some negatives and some other things that we have learned. Okay, so with order of operations, there are rules to follow when simplifying an expression that contains multiple operations. So, order of operations is rules to follow when simplifying an expression that contains multiple operations. So, what comes first in terms of order of operations, everyone? Okay, parentheses. So, we have our P for parentheses. Now, there are multiple different types of parentheses, guys. There's not just one type. So, you see the normal parentheses symbol, but we could also have something where it looks like that. It's a type of a bracket. There's another type of bracket that I am not good at drawing, but it looks like this. I'm not good at drawing it. That's why there's computers to draw it for us. But there's one other type of grouping symbol that we need to make sure we write down. We learned it in our integers unit. Riley?
Just the 2 lines for absolute value.
The 2 straight up and down lines for absolute value. That is another type of parentheses, and we still have to know absolute value. What comes after parentheses, everyone? Exponents. And I'm going to also write and a thing called radicals. Okay, next, what comes next, everyone? Thank you, sweetie. Now, is it just multiplication?
No.
It's multiplication and division. So it is both multiplication and division. And what order do we go in? How do we read a book? So how do we solve a math problem? So you multiply and divide from left to right. What's last then, everyone? Add and subtract. Very good. In what order? Those things are never ever going to change. The problems are just going to get a lot more complicated with the more things that you have learned. Okay? So here is my first piece of advice. You have to show everything. Thank you. You can just leave it right there. Thank you. Show everything. Every problem gets a line. Do not skip a step, because that's where errors get made, and I see it all the time, and I see it on quizzes, I see it on tests. So if we look at that first example, okay, what should come first in terms of order of operations? Okay, now I have a question. There's parentheses there, but is there anything inside the parentheses to actually do?
No.
So are there really parentheses?
No.
What does that parentheses mean? That means a multiplication problem. So it doesn't mean anything with parentheses, it just means to multiply. So next, what do you think we would do?
54 divided by
What would come first?
54 divided by 3.
So I do 54 divided by 3 first because multiplication and division I do from left to right. So everyone, 54 divided by 3. Figure that out. What is 54 divided by 3?
18.
Okay, so when I solve this problem, I'm pretty particular in the way that I want you to show your work because I know that it's beneficial and I know that it works. Okay? When I do that, it's like I'm bringing down 18. I bring everything else down with it. I keep the 7, I keep the plus sign, and I keep the times 2. I bring everything down with it. I do not skip anything. I keep it nice, neat, and organized because otherwise mistakes are made. And I cannot help you if your work is not organized. So what do I do now? 18 times 2. Everyone do 18 times 2. What is 18 times 2, everyone? What was it?
36.
So now I bring down my 7 plus because I did not touch that at all. Write my 36 because that's what 18 times 2 is. And my last and final step is to do what? Add. And 36 plus 7 is? And I would box in my answer as 43. Do not ever do 2 problems at one time. Every line, every step, everything needs to be shown. Okay, let's look at number 2. (24 minus 4 squared). What's the dot mean, everyone? Good. Times 3 plus 15. Order of operations. What do I have to do first? I need to do my exponent. So 4 to the second power. That should be memorized, right, guys? What's 4 to the second power?
16.
So I would write 24 minus 16 times 3 plus 15. I'm not doing multiple things at once. I solve one problem, write it down, copy everything with it. What now?
Multiplication.
Good. Everyone do 16 times 3. What's 16 times 3, everyone?
48.
So I have 24 minus 48 plus 15. What now? Why am I subtracting before I'm adding? Good. Left to right, always. So 24 minus 48.
24.
It is a negative 24. You will have integers. You will have positive and negative numbers. So make sure you remember your integer rules. So I have negative 24 plus 15. Everyone finish solving that for me. The answer is negative 9. Okay, let's go to number 3. What comes first in terms of order of operations? And what are those type of parentheses called?
Absolute value.
So what is the absolute value of negative 18? So I'm going to rewrite the problem, the entire thing, That way I get rid of those absolute value signs and that negative sign. Now what?
You do exponent.
Good. 9 to the second is?
81.
So I'm going to write 81, and I'm going to copy down the rest of the problem. Always do line by line, one number at a time, or one operation at a time. Don't skip around. That's where mistakes can get made. What now?
Division.
28 divided by 4 is?
7.
Now what?
81 plus 7.
And 81 plus 7 is?
38.
And last but not least, 88 minus 18 is?
70.
Do you guys see how nice, neat, and organized work should be? Okay, it'll benefit you, especially when harder problems come along, if you can keep your work organized. Okay, let's go to number 4. What do I do first? Okay, what do I do first inside the parentheses?
Exponent.
Good, 2 to the 5th. This is one I have students mess up on all the time, so be extremely careful. 2 to the 5th is?
32.
32. So I should still be writing down, even though we said parentheses, I solved a problem already. So don't go ahead and do another problem. Write it down, step by step by step. Now what?
Use parentheses using 30.
Finish your parentheses up. So 32 minus 29 is?
3.
Do you notice how I did not do parentheses all in one step? It's 2 steps because there's 2 problems inside that parentheses. So now what?
Exponent.
Exponents. What's 6 squared?
36.
Now what?
48 divided by 3.
Good. (48) divided by 3 is?
16.
16. And last but not least, 16 plus 36 is?
52.
52. So really, you know how to do everything, right guys? It's just A, taking your time, B, showing all of your work, and being extremely careful. Okay, let's go to number 5. What do I do first?
Parentheses, the left one.
Which one?
Left.
The left one. So 9 minus 5 is?
4.
So it's 4. I'm going to keep it in parentheses because it's to the power of 3. If that power of 3 wasn't there, I could have got rid of those parentheses signs. But otherwise, I'm going to keep it. And I'm going to subtract the parentheses of 18 minus 6 times 2. Now what?
Parentheses, the right one.
Do your other parentheses. What do I do first?
6 times 2.
6 times 2. And what is 6 times 2?
12.
Now what?
Subtract them.
What, everyone?
Subtract 18 versus 12.
What's 18 minus 12?
6.
Now you can get rid of those parenthesis signs because they're not needed anymore. You can keep them if you want. Oh, thank you. See, mistakes are easily made. Should be 4 to the 3rd power, not to the 2nd. I kept writing the 2nd. So now, what do I do? Your exponent. So 4 to the 3rd, everyone solve that. What is it?
64.
And 64 minus 6 is?
58.
Alright, see if we can get through this last one. We'll do the other page tomorrow, okay? What do you think I do first on this one? And what do I do first inside the parentheses? Good, everyone do 3 to the 4th for me. Three to the 4th is?
81.
Now what?
We do the subtracted parentheses.
53 minus 81. Solve that for me. Don't say it out loud. What is it? Good. Now what?
We do the division. 28 divided by 6.
Okay, does anyone know what this thing's called here? This is called a square root. So this is that white sheet of paper that we're going to go over next in your notebook. These are the squares and square root quiz that you guys are going to have on Monday, and that page must be fully memorized. Okay? So, square root of 16. Square roots are the opposite of squaring a number. So when we did 6 squared, 6 squared is what?
36.
So if I asked you for the square root of 36, that would be 6. It's the opposite of it. It's what times what equals that number. So what times what equals 16?
4.
So the square root of 16 is 4. Does that make sense? That's what we call a radical. So up top when we wrote exponents plus radicals, that's a radical. A square root sign's a radical. Eventually you'll get cube roots and higher things like that as well. Now what?
We do divide negative.
Now we divide. And what am I dividing?
Negative 28 by 4.
And negative 28 divided by 4 is? And 7 plus negative 7 is? 0. Order of operations is all just about practice and being organized. So let's go to that white sheet of paper that we glued into our notebook. Your squares and square roots page. And we need to fill this in. What's 1 squared, everyone? What's 2 squared?
4.
3 squared?
9.
4 squared?
16.
5 squared?
25.
6 squared?
26.
7 squared?
49.
8 squared?
64.
9 squared?
81.
10 squared?
100.
11 squared?
121.
12 squared?
144.
How many of us have all of that memorized already? So I'm really hoping everyone has most of that memorized. So then you look at your roots, and your roots are the exact same numbers, they're just the opposite. Okay, so you're taking that square root, and I want to know the square root of 1. What's the square root of 1? 1. What's the square root of 4?
2.
Square root of 9?
3.
Square root of 16?
4.
Square root of 25? Square root of 36?
6.
Square root of 49?
7.
Square root of 64?
8.
Square root of 81?
9.
Square root of 100?
10.
Square root of 121?
11.
And square root of 144?
12.
So you guys will have a quiz on Monday where all of this must be memorized. On Monday. You will have a quiz over all of this on Monday. It's not going to be in order. That would be way too simple, right, guys? So the numbers will be mixed around. Everything will be mixed around, and you will have 2 minutes to do it. As long as you can get it done in 2 minutes, you're good to go. Okay, I'm going to stop this recording.